Welcome to Make Your Own Fun. I am here with James Lewis of Hurt on the Heartbeat, and their latest album is Something I'll Never Forget. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let me start off with this one. We'll just start on the outside and just work our way in, man.
Yeah, totally.
So I gotta say, I thought that the artwork itself for the album was really captivating, and I just kind of wanted to know, was that like a snapshot that you took locally there, or was that something like an artist, went out and took for you guys?
That's interesting you say that because like the one favorite like supporter of our band is in London and we've never like officially got to meet her. Her name's Julia, Julia Hagen, and she just goes around London and takes pictures of all these just different things, mostly bands, but also like, just random pictures like that. And when I saw that picture, I was like, dude, that's going to be an album cover. And she was stoked. I was stoked. And it just kind of was perfect.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, for me, it totally reminded me of like Free Will and Bob Dylan, just the two of them just walking down that street, and it just evoked
yep.
that kind of feeling. I mean, so the title track, what kind of explain to the folks kind of just, how the gist of that kind of came together. Is that something you'd been sitting on for a while, or, you kind of just took it in there to the studio for this particular album?
What the actual the name of the album or okay, I'll tell you. This is the secret that I don't tell a lot of people, but the title tracks of all the albums are not on the actual album. So like something I'll never forget won't be on any albums until like we get to our 10th album. So like Don't Look Down. That's the name of our first album. Smile That Saved the Whole World. That was the second. Blah blah blah. And then for our 10th album, then we're gonna use like nine of those songs from all of the key tracks. So that's kind of the secret behind that.
I
So
gotcha. That's a total like when kids, well, not kids now, but when people bought physical graffiti back in the day, they were like, why is there a song on here called Houses of the Holy?
exactly,
What the actual fuck is
exactly.
that?
Yes.
So let me ask you this, building on that, do you guys road test your stuff before you go into the recording studio, or do you just write it and go in? Do you test it in front of an audience and just kind of like play
Yeah.
it out? You do? Okay.
We definitely do. Yeah, I think actually the show that we did where I met you, we played that whole album and we hadn't been into a recording studio for it. So we were really testing that out there. So how does it feel? Do people enjoy it or people like bored? That
People definitely were not bored, man. I got to tell you, people were live streaming that thing and they were clapping along. It was almost like, some of those choruses really jumped out. And I think that, that's a testament that you have like brand new stuff. And you played a couple of older songs, I remember too. We talked about that, but like to just get that immediate reaction, that has to be like super satisfying to just like, fuck it, here goes, and then you
yeah,
get that immediate love and applause and feedback and people like me going like, oh, it's amazing.
and nerve-wracking though. Like I'll tell you, like in every artist, there's always just like are people really clapping because they like it or they're clapping because they have to type deal? You know what I'm saying?
No one
Like,
was getting paid to clap, man.
but I always feel that way. We just played a show recently at the House of Blues, and I could tell what songs were like hitting. And it's funny that you say that because the newer songs were really hitting more. And then as soon as I went to like an older song like Dreadlock Angel, that's when I saw people just kind of like, not clearing the dance floor, but just not knowing how to move as much because it may be a slower song. So now I'm trying to do a little bit more upbeat songs when we're out in public, but
I
you know
mean, that could be any number of things. It also could be if people had, and this goes for like any band. Sometimes this one just connected with certain people on a different levels. Maybe you're getting like kind of like a younger crowd in with a new album. So maybe that's just like their entry point to your band is the most recent stuff, and
yeah,
then that's
true,
all they
true.
know,
That's
and
true.
I'll make a weird kind of like parallel to that where it's like I have older friends and family members that went to see David Bowie back in the 80s. And I think that was like the whatever you call it, Serious Moonlight tour when he did when Let's Dance came out.
Yeah.
So that album was so huge because it, had like 4 or 5 like really big singles, music videos on MTV, and everybody knew it.
Yeah.
But then, like when he would play this entire 15 fucking years of back catalog of these amazing songs, the kids or the people that were growing up on MTV were like, "Time to go get a beer, time to take a leak."
Wow.
And and I remember my aunt being like you don't know this song and this is, and they're like, meh. And it's like
He's playing like Lady Stardust, and people are like, I gotta go to the bathroom.
they're
No
like
way.
fame. I don't know. It's kind of catchy, whatever.
Let's
But
dance. Let's.
but that's the thing. It's like you just never know, and that was like that generation. That was their entry point into his.
Totally.
It was a totally new audience for him, and then when he started to go away from that, people were like, "Oh, we don't understand that we're not doing the clean cut 4 minute dance rock songs."
Bowie was amazing. I got to see him only one time with Nine Inch Nails, and that was just I was like seventh row, and I'm telling you, I feel like I made eye contact with him for like 30 seconds, like I felt the eye contact, and he was just such a massive presence of a man that like even the whole just building an ambiance of like the not panic but just like it felt like there was almost like an unsafeness about the whole place of like, dude, this is something bigger than all of us. The security couldn't really stop anybody. They were just kind of like letting everybody go by, and it was just so more massive than a concert. It was like a happening. It was phenomenal.
And that's something to be said for that time period too, because I think right around that time, maybe before that time, is when they really started like instigating that whole like barricade and like distance from the stage, because you've seen, I'm sure, and you've been to concerts, but you've seen the photographs and probably like YouTube footage of stuff from like everything up through like the 80s or whatever, when then you could literally just go up and people could like grab on to people and jump up on
Yeah.
stage. You cannot do that shit
No, that's
anymore.
changed. That's over. That's over.
Unless you're that one guy that, what was it, like the Grammys that ran up and like try to grab Bob Dylan or something, and it said like soy bomb on his
Oh
chest.
yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
even he was just like, whatever.
Yeah, I heard
I've seen
Dylan
this
loved
shit.
that. I
Uh,
heard Dylan loved it.
Let me ask you this: as a songwriter, I mean, I can throw together some chords. I wouldn't call myself a songwriter, but off the top of your head, for your own songs, do you think that you've ever used the chord progression C, G, A minor, F? That's supposed to be just the most relaxing, easy combination of chords.
No, I don't think I have. Maybe you'll have to try that.
Okay, so get this. Like so many people have done it where it's just like, fuck, that just feels so good. And like, oh my God, yeah, like
Yeah.
perfect. And then, and then when I got a little bit older, I was like, wait a minute. And then I started listening to, older stuff and going like, that's Let It Be by the Beatles.
Crazy.
That's No Woman, No Cry by Bob Marley.
Yeah.
And that is also what's another one? So Lonely by the Police.
Yeah.
And there's a couple more, but it's one of those things where you're like, no, it can't be like that common. But I think it's just one of those natural things where just everybody's just picking up an instrument, and for whatever reason, guitar, bass, piano, those chords just naturally kind of flow in together, and you're not really thinking about it. So
Well,
yeah, I was just kind of curious.
there's only so many, if you start on a C, there's only so many places you can go. You know what I'm saying? So you could pretty much go to the C to an A minor or a C to the G. So it all kind of dictates which direction you're going. So that's why there's so many chord progressions that are the same. What makes it the song really is not so much the chord progression, but the melody over, like the singing melody or the vocal phrasing of the guitar that creates the melody over the chord structure. That's what makes the song. Because I think even like Ed Sheeran or somebody was sued recently. I forget what that guy's name is, but he was sued recently because he used the chord progression and then he went to court and he showed no, like there's so many chord progressions that are all the same because there's only so many notes in music. And like I said, when you can just go one or two places in these, in these diagrams, it's all going to kind of start to sound similar. It's what you do over that vocal melody, which can change because the vocal melody has so many other different notes that you can use over those chords.
That's
So
true. Yeah, I mean, even those songs I just mentioned, like none of those guys write similar type songs. I mean, we all wish we wrote songs like Paul McCartney, but like
100%.
um, you know, the Bob Marley song doesn't sound anything like the Beatles song, and then
Yep.
the Police song is more like a cross between like ska and punk. But um, yeah, man. So I really dig the new album, and I always wondered what was like an influence, maybe not even just with this album going back, like, oh, who were some songwriters and bands that you were into? And I know that like you've got other, band members and that they're also contributing, like the great, Rondi Moore Kondo, she's awesome sauce. But yeah,
Definitely.
I'm just kind of curious to pick your brain about that.
For that album, the problem with, I don't want to say the problem, but that album was kind of coming together before the pandemic, so we had these songs like 3 years ago, now 4 years ago, and we were ready to record them, but then the pandemic happened, and it just like it kind of sucked because then we had to just sit on these songs like Lost on the Moon, for example. Okay. It's a fun song, but like half of these songs I don't think I would have recorded now, because you kind of grow as a songwriter. And like Michael Stipe, he's a big influencer of mine. He says he can't listen to his original or even songs from a year before because you just start to grow. You start to grow in the world of music, and every day that you grow, you look back and you're just like, what am I? I wouldn't do this the way that I would do it before. And so influences, God, always Bob Dylan. Like people you're saying, actually, like the Police, they're a big influence. Radiohead, of course, Tom York, always. Yeah, and then Rondi, Rondi loves, like Bootsy Collins, Victor Wooten, and she's all into the funk, so that's what makes it kind of cool because she's got a funk aspect. And then our keyboard player, he's a Steve Rice. He loves, he's all over the place. He loves, like George Harrison and just all these different like groups that like I'm not even super familiar with, and that's what. And then we have Richard Cabin, the rhythm guitar player. He loves like industrial music. Okay, so he loves like KFMD, whatever, Kill Motherfucker Depeche Mode, that and like all like Ministry, and he's all over the place too. But he's really into industrial, so that makes it kind of a weird combination when we all get together and we all add our 2 cents. It kind of creates its own different sound, which is fun. You
Yeah,
know.
and I'm trying to think. God, I guess it's been about a year, maybe a little bit over a year since I saw you guys at Pondwater. But I think I even told you at the time that, and maybe it's because of the live sound, and so the guitar was like, super amplified. But I definitely heard like a Pixies influence. And then some of your
Love
line
them.
deliveries, and I would take this as a compliment. Some of your line deliveries, really reminded me of Tom Petty.
Rondi said that the last because we're actually right now we're recording or we're rehearsing a new album, and so she's hearing all this new material now, and she said the same thing. She's like, sometimes when I'm listening to you, you just remind me a lot of Tom Petty. And of course that's a fucking compliment, like that those the Pixies and fucking Tom Petty, dude, come on. Those are like some of the staples in music, like there's no better. I always thought that I would have time to see Tom Petty because I just felt that like he was an American standard. Like he was going to always be here. I could always see him.
I
You
know,
know,
I know, I know. I didn't get to see him. I was so sad. And a couple of friends of mine were like gonna go to the Hollywood Bowl, and I was like, oh, I can't afford it, and I'll just see him next time. And then like
next time,
2 weeks
next
later, he
time.
was dead. I was like, are you
Yeah,
fucking kidding me?
yeah, straight up.
Oh. So yeah, I think correct me if I'm wrong. I think the song on the album's called is it Melissa's Mine?
Okay,
Yeah, that song, that's kind of what I'm talking about because you do this really cool thing, and it might have just been an accidental thing where, at the end of the line, which kind of reminded me of Tom Petty, where it's like you have a pause, like a pregnant pause, and then you say mine, but it's like a spoken word instead of a
Oh
sung
yeah,
word. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
figured that was like tricks of the trade as a singer because you've been playing to an audience. So it's kind of like it's almost like you're leaning into the microphone and being like, you know. So that was kind of where I got that from this album. So
That's
that's
cool. That's
yeah.
cool.
Um,
That I'd say that that song is a complete rip off of like Dear Yoko. You know what I'm saying? Like just the whole, like or Oh Yoko, whatever. Like how John had so many just Yoko songs. There were so many Yoko songs that I was like, dude, I'm gonna make a Melissa song. Fuck
fuck
this.
yeah. I
You
mean, because
know?
after a while, people are like, dude, we get it. You love your wife. Um,
Yes.
um, well, it's funny too, talking about the Pixies, and you're talking about Radiohead, and I read an interview with Johnny Greenwood like it's like 10 or 15 years ago, where they were asking, when they did that big stylistic change going into more like house, techno, funk, and like in the early 2000s, and people were like, oh, well, we liked your sound in the 90s, and we liked the guitar and the loud, quiet chorus and verse kind of thing. Like, why did you change? And like how did you just run out of ideas and you don't want to play the guitar anymore? And his answer was so freaking brilliant. I know you'll appreciate it. He goes, it's like, guys, there's only six Pixies albums.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
like if I'm gonna ape somebody, and I that first Radiohead album definitely does sound like the Pixies.
Yeah, oh, of course. It's totally different from, even their last one. And then I don't know if you've been listening to The Smile, like the side project with Johnny Greenwood and Tom York and the drummer. Like, I'm not sure what drummer, but dude, Tom York and Johnny Greenwood, they keep just moving forward. There's not too many bands, even from the 90s, that really, you know, keep just stepping up their game. Every single album gets better and better and better and better. And that's Tom York, because he keeps trying to strive for something new. He keeps trying to do something better than he's done before, and he always succeeds.
I
So
think
that's why you
that's
can't.
a boredom thing too. I think that um even when I saw them at the Hollywood Bowl, people were kind of like over themselves because they didn't play Creep, and it's like they're tired of that song, man. They
Yeah,
have so many better songs, and I'd rather hear them do that. I'd actually almost rather hear them do a cover than play that song because
yeah.
I grew up with that song. I liked that song when it came out, but I don't need to hear it again. You know
And
what I mean?
that's not
It's
the
like
song that I
it's
love to
here.
hear. Yeah, there's so many different versions of Radiohead. And everything that they do, everything that's Right Place, Lotus Flower. Like, there's so many just different aspects of Radiohead.
Um, yeah, so just picking up from that, I wanted to say because we spoke earlier about Lost on the Moon, and I wanted to ask you about that because that one was kind of like a surprise for me on the album because I think the album had a kind of a certain mood, and that one kind of just jumped out of left field, and I really latched onto that for whatever reason. And I wanted to ask you, did that get kind of written for like a film project in mind? Because it has this pretty awesome like cinematic quality to it.
I'd say honestly, all the songs that I write just happen to be about people in my life somehow, one way or another. Like that's how it always starts. Like I think of a person, I think of a time, I think of a situation in my life, and then, like I used to play music with a certain person, and then I couldn't play with them anymore. And then that's really kind of how it was. I felt, lost on the moon. I felt like, you know, I was all alone because I couldn't actually play music. So no, it wasn't for a movie or anything like that. It was more just situational. But I'll say this, in the frame of making it, like I really did set out to have like a kind of a Pink Floyd vibe to it. Like I told the band, I'm like, hey, I want like a Pink Floyd vibe. I had all these special effects that I was trying to use for, the actual recording. None of them worked, of course, but sometimes when we play live, I'll use those effects, and it makes it even sound more spacier and more, I like it to sound like we're actually in space. That's kind of the point,
Oh
or
yeah.
just lost in the moment.
Yeah,
So,
I totally got that. And everybody watch until the end of this because when the credits roll at the end, James was nice enough to allow me to use that song, and I found some pretty cool stock footage for the credits. So you will see all the links to all of his sites at there, but you'll also hear that beautiful song too. So, um, so moving on from that, like let's say, because I know you have James Lewis and the Muckers, and you do your stuff on your own. So, when you're writing a song, how do you know instinctively, like, oh, this is a Hurt in the Heartbeat song, or this is just something I'm going to go out and just road test myself?
I usually like now we're recording a new hurt or rehearsing a new Hurt and Heartbeat song. I will sit down and be like, these are Hurt and Heartbeat songs, like just straight out, you know. And the Muckers actually started when I broke my foot and I just had all this extra time and I wasn't working. I had nothing to do. So I was really just trying to write a solo album so I wouldn't, you know, throw all this new material at Her in the Heartbeat. So then it turned into something more serious where I played it for another musician and that musician had a band at the time. And he's like, dude, why don't we just turn this all into one band? You know, and it was really fun. And we played a couple shows and it went really well, and then, like bands do, that kind of broke up. But what I kept doing was just bringing in new people all the time for that Jimmy Lewis and the Muckers. So that was kind of, you know, I never know who the Muckers are going to be. You know, it could be just random people all the time. And that makes it fun for me because half of the enjoyment of playing music is relating to other people musically, you know, and getting people in the room that you hardly even know and just start communicating through music. And when you can do that, you start to build a relationship that's stronger than, you know, other relationships because you're kind of speaking without saying anything at all. You're speaking through vocal tones, you know? So,
I totally
but
get that. Yeah, I mean, there's just, musicians you think about that have been around forever where it's like, oh, well, they're just going to do this. Like an example would be like Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, where he's just a writing machine, but then he'll say like, well, these aren't Weezer songs. And I'm like, but you guys are to the point now where you're putting out like a freaking album like every less than every year, and it's like you've got
yeah.
stuff that you're just going to do on your own. But I guess if you're just one of those guys that just can crank them out.
Well, look at Jay Mascis. Jay Mascis, I think it's the same thing. He makes so much music. Like Dinosaur Jr. album will come out, then like 3 months later, a Jay Mascis will come out. Like because what happens is when you kind of understand that process, you want to keep going because you know, like for me, I'm always looking for like a better song, kind of like back to Radiohead. I'm looking for the like this is cool here, but I know so much more now. What can I create that's going to be better and better and better and better? So that kind of becomes an addiction in itself, you
I
know.
got
So
you.
I totally get that, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, like another example would be like somebody like Elvis Costello, which everybody always wants him to play the attractions or the imposter stuff, and then he'll just throw a curveball and he's like, I'm gonna make an album with the Roots because why not?
Yes,
Like,
definitely.
how many songs does this guy have in him? And he's been doing it for forever, forever, forever,
Yep,
like 45 years. So just
yep.
goes to show you, man, it's just you'll find your vehicle and get your stuff out there. So would it be all right to impose upon you to play a song if you have an acoustic guitar or anything sitting around?
I don't have my acoustic, but I think my I can keep my electric to the point where it sounds like an acoustic.
Okay.
So we'll see how that works
All
because
right.
I just have it. Let's see.
I mean, we'll probably end up hearing your vocal over the top anyway,
Oh
hopefully.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And then that'll be fine because we're not going to
Oh
really
yeah.
probably see your hands or anything. So unless you're going to do some like intricate Eddie Van Halen shredding crazy bullshit,
No,
get out the
not at
bungee
all.
cords.
Not at all. Can you hear that?
I can hear you. I can't really hear the guitar. A little bit.
Turn up a little bit.
Yeah.
Things change when you're least expecting. Time is a pantomime. I hardly see you these days. Have I committed a crime? We used to see movies together. The film was in black and white. You were in color, have I lost sight? There'd be no Christmas, there'd be no Christmas, there'd be no Christmas without you. Leaves fall when there's no one around. Is it a part of life? I'll try to get you, even when you see the light. There'd be no Christmas, there'd be no Christmas, there'd be no Christmas without you. I remember lighting up that Christmas tree. Your little dog would walk up to me and even pee on me. Everything was so bright and warm. If you leave, my heart will be warm or torn. There'll be no Christmas, there'll be no Christmas, there'll be no Christmas without you.
Right on, man. Right on.
He's like a week old song, so I'm pulling out a
I dug
week
it. I
old
dug it.
songs.
I gotta ask, hop back in your Wayback Machine of choice and let the folks know kind of like how you got into performing live. Was it somebody roped you in, or you were talking with some friends and playing in a garage and you went to an open mic, or what was that first experience like?
Okay, well, I'm a UPS driver by day, so I was probably like 28 or 29, and I saw this FedEx driver. He was he was like strumming like a guitar on his break, and I'm like, "What are you doing, dude? What do you how do I get to do this?" And then he's like, "Just bring me $50 tomorrow." So then I ended up bringing him $50. He brought me like a carbon copy of a Fender Stratocaster, like a really cheap Fender, and he goes, "Here you go. You got to learn how to play this." And he wasn't going to teach me. He just said, "Learn how to play it." So then I'd say about like 2 days later, I'm delivering to another guy's house. And as I'm delivering, I drop a package in the garage and I see all these amps. I see like basically like a musical studio in this guy's garage. And I look at the guy and I go, "Hey, man." And I grab the guitar that the FedEx dude gave me. And I go, "I don't know how to play this. Can you teach me how to play this?" And at that point, the guy's like, "Yeah, sure." And then he would come to
Yeah,
my
sure.
last, yeah, he was like, "Sure." So he would come to my last pickup at UPS, and for like in like 45 minutes every day, he would just teach me how to play. And then ironically, we met in the park one time, and Rondi was sitting in that same park. Okay. And then I think Rondi walked up to us and said something like, "Are you guys like playing music?" And or it was vice versa. Maybe someone walked up to somebody walked up to each, and then that was kind of it. And I'm like, "Dude, come play with us." And then Rondi started playing with us, and then the old guy, the older man, he wanted to play all these like older songs like 24 3 6 1 whatever, like don't, but just all of these really old songs that I couldn't get into because I wasn't from that time period, which I loved music from any genre, but these songs were just dated for me. So then I started writing my own songs, and then I'd be like, "Dude, here, let's try out one of my own songs." And he just never wanted to play like any of my own songs, and then Rondi did. So then I think I didn't see Ronnie for like a couple years, and then finally, like I just started just going after her constantly, like, I need you to play bass in this band. Like, then I started a band maybe like 2 years after that, and I was just hounding Rondi, you got to play bass, you got to play bass, you got to play bass. And then finally she said yes, and then that's kind of how it really started. And then we had Richard, the rhythm guitar player. He was my roommate at the time, and he always just loved to play. So it all organically started coming together. And then since I lived in Laguna Beach, there was like a heart gallery, it was an art gallery, but they had all these hearts there, and handmade hearts, these little like necklaces and things. And they had a whole like studio in the back, and we said, can we play here? And they're like, yeah, sure. So then every Saturday night for like a year, we were just playing in fucking in Laguna on, Saturdays and Art Walk. So we would have a lot of like people come through there, check us out, look at us dance, have a good time. I was always waiting for like someone like Taylor Hawkins to walk in, because I knew that he was like he lived in Laguna, and I'm like, when the fuck is Taylor Hawkins gonna walk in and just jump on the drum kit and fucking start playing with us? But it never happened. But it led to other things, and now we play as much as we can. So
Well, that's awesome. Let me ask you this, because I figure that there's kind of like a, similarity between music and comedy performing. Like for me, I started off in a comedy group doing like sketches and stuff at like Kent State, and eventually I went to Second City in Cleveland and all that, and got really great and tight writing and working with the group to the point where I was on stage. I never really felt nervous. There's that little bit of butterflies before you go on stage, because it's a different audience wherever you go, and anything. But I just felt like when you're with a group of people, yeah, you're facing the audience, but you're also kind of turned to hear all the cues and everything that's going on. But then when I got a little bit older and I moved to California and I started doing like stand up and stuff like that, it scared the shit out of me, because it was like suddenly I was like, it's almost like you're turning like that first couple of times I did it and expecting there to be somebody to play off of, and that wasn't there. And I had to just fuck, I just had to focus and be like, I gotta
dial
go
in.
tell this shitty story about this funny thing that happened, whatever. So is there something similar to that when you're playing with like Hurt in the Heartbeat, or when you're just by yourself at a bar, or a venue with just you and your acoustic or whatever? Are you ever just playing and then you're just in that mindset of like you're just so used to waiting for a cue from another musician? Does that ever happen?
I would say not really so much. Like, because like usually, like, I'm really what's the word, I'm really, before I play any song that I'm gonna play or anything, I know that, like, I actually visualize this going really well. It doesn't always go so well, but I try to visualize it being something bigger than myself. And when the band's there, yes, but I tend to, when there's bigger audiences, I tend to even tune the band out, because I feel that, like, it's my job as a lead singer to get the people dancing in on the dance floor and to get them moving. So I know, like, Rondi and the drummer, like, we have this new drummer Wayne. I know they're all doing their parts, and they're trying to get the people going too. So then I'm trying to more or less attach to the audience, But I'll say this: I had one time when we were in the early beginnings of Hurt in the Heartbeat, I was trying this new song, and like I had like it was like a song on like the third. I needed a capo for the third fret, okay? And my aunt was there, my family was there, and I was just so nervous that I forgot about the capo. So I start singing this song, and bro, you could see everybody in the whole
They're
fucking
just like,
audience just going, "This guy should quit. He should quit whatever he's doing. This is not going well." And then, like, probably like a minute in, I looked down, like, "Oh, the capo!" And then I threw the capo on it all. But dude, as that was happening, sweat was just coming down my face. I'm trying to figure out what's going wrong. My aunt's just seriously looking at me like, "Dude, give it up, man."
like
But
it just
then
probably like your vocal was probably like a Tiny Tim versus like the guitar part was like Rammstein, because it was just not the right part in the neck, and people were just like,
It was just so off key. It was just like everything was off key. So like it just sounded like that's yeah. It was the worst mistake that I've ever done musically, and I learned I'll never do that again. But like I'm telling you, there was nothing more embarrassing than that. Like
But you know
even if you
what?
told a
Even with that, even with what you're saying, and you've been through it and you've done it before, and I'm sure everybody else has dropped, parts or a riff or a note here. We all can't be in James Brown's band where we get fined for missing a fucking note or whatever that shit
yeah,
is. But I'm sure it's like you either learn to just cover it with a fill or whatever, or just quickly be like, or you have like you're talking like that rapport with the audience where you're like, oh, that wasn't that fucked up. That's not part of the song, or is it? And they're just like,
yeah.
oh, we don't know if that's part of the song. We don't know. Um,
I've seen Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs like start a song over like 3 or 4 times. Okay. And that's when you're like, that's more or less about the art. And it's more about the art than it is about the people that are watching. For her to be like, something's wrong. Then they play it, no, something's wrong. And finally they get it, and you're like, that's what music really is. It's, yes, you can play through your mistakes, but it's more or less, well, why am I making a mistake? What's happening right now? We know what this should sound like. Let's make it sound like that. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, not everybody's got those like Rush like chops where they're playing like a structure band, but they know all those blues and jazz standards by heart where they could just cover it in and then they're right back in the pocket and in the nicest way possible. You're like, and fuck you, Geddy Lee. You just because
Yeah,
you're just it's such a
seriously.
nice thing to say, but I'm like, going to the show, watching them like miss something, but it covered it so well. The other two just covered things so well that you're like, no one would fucking know. Like
Yeah, of course.
it's like with that band you couldn't really have an off night, but it's like you could, but they're just on that level where it's just like no one would ever know. No
Yeah,
one.
straight up.
Well, I guess let me ask you if you feel like playing another song, you can. If not, we can wrap it up here. I'll let you I will just say that previous guitar that you had, whenever you were not singing, the sound kind of was really low.
Okay, good. I'll play. I have an acoustic.
Oh, sweet. Did one get handed to you magically from off camera?
Yes.
Yes. Some serious Monty Python shit. I love it.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Where? Okay. Needle to a tree, right to be free. Turning of the wheel, baby, my last struggle. Wind beneath the wing, a fresh air of spring. Eyes like Betty White, eyes like Betty White. You're the only thing, sugar, that I see tonight, tonight. Touching of the soul, will I ever grow? Holding of the hand, well, that endless queen sang. Eyes like Betty White, eyes like Betty White. You're the only thing, sugar, that I see tonight, 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 tonight. Breaking of the string, Frodo without sting, life without me. I miss everyone that I see. Eyes like Betty White, eyes like Betty White. You're the only thing that I see tonight, tonight, tonight.
Yeah.
There we
Thank you,
go.
man. That was beautiful. I remember when you played that upon water. I thought that was a definite standout. Um, so I guess as we wrap it up here, I guess just kind of let the folks know what's coming up next for you guys and where can they find your work online.
What's coming up next is we might have a show, say Halloween, but we're just basically recording a new album. We have our new drummer Wayne. He's amazing. That has created a whole new aspect to the band. When you have a new player that's just passionate about music, passionate about what he's doing, it makes it so much better than old shitty drummers that you used to have. So, but yeah, we're probably gonna have an album out around like that Halloween time. So at that point, drop the album, then maybe play a Halloween show, and then call it a wrap for the year. That's about it.
Awesome. Well, you have a whole catalog, man. So people can find that. I know you guys are on Bandcamp. You're on Instagram. I think you're on Apple, right, as well.
We're on everything, whatever
all
you
major
just
platforms. So I'll throw those.
Google "Hurt in the Heartbeat" and you're good to go. You'll find it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And like I said earlier, folks, stay through the credits. I put a clip of Lost on the Moon on there, some pretty fun stock footage. So, James, you were the shit, as I knew you would be, man. Thank you so much for being on here. And this will be this will be up on the channel on Wednesday, April 3rd. Woo! All right, man. Have a great Easter. Tell everybody I said hi. Tell Rondi I said hi. And man, just keep doing what you're doing, man. People love you guys.
Oh, I appreciate you, bro. I really do. Thank you so much for having me. Seriously.
No problem. Bye now.
Later, bro.
I'm past the point, no return. Things you teach, I already learned.